Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Ajalam here. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you so much for the love and support so far. I really appreciate you all. And if this is your first time of coming across my channel, please subscribe and turn on the bell icon so that you get to know anytime I put up a new video. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a pleated ball gown with a yoke for a year-old baby girl. So if you're interested, let's move down to work. The lace for the upper part, and this is the satin that I'll be using for the down part, the applique that I'll be using, and the lining as well. So I'll start with the upper parts drafting. So in drafting out a yoke bodice, I will start by drafting out the basic bodice. Okay, and when making a yoke, there are two types of yokes. One is yoke without fullness, which is called basic yoke, and the second one is the yoke with fullness, and that is also called a decorative yoke. So for today's own, I'll be making a yoke without fullness. That is a basic yoke. An example of that is a straight yoke, simple round yoke, straight yoke, square yoke, any pattern that you want. While the decorative yoke is the yoke that you add ruffles or pleats or frills on it. Okay, so now first and foremost, draft out the basic bodice. The bodice length is 7 inches plus 1 inch for my seam, that is 8. So the shoulder is 8 inches, half of that is 4 because my paper is on fold. So this is 4 here. I'll come down by ½ inch, which is the shoulder slope. I'll be using 2 1/4 for the neck width, which is here, and the neck depth I'll use the same thing, which is also here. Okay, so I will now connect the neckline. Here you can choose any type of neckline you want to use. So this is the neckline here. So now I'll connect this point to this point here. After that, now I will mark out the armhole. The armhole is 3.5, which is here. So this is 3.5. And in that point there, I will put in the shoulder, half of the shoulder measurement, which is 4. Okay, and then I'll connect to the point upward. Okay, so after doing that, this is now the chest line where I'll be putting in the chest measurement. So the chest measurement is 20 divided by 4 is 5 inches, which is here. Then I'll add my 1 inch for seam, and that is this point here. Okay, after that, now I'll check what I have here. This is 3 1/2. I'll simply fold my tape into 2 and mark out that point there. This is the midpoint. So here now I'll come in by 3/4 inch, which is this point. After that, now I'll connect. If you don't have a French curve, you can also use your free hand to do that. Okay, so after connecting, now we'll determine the shape of the yoke. Okay, so this is it. Then the waist measurement is 20 as well. So 20 divided by 4 is 5 inches plus 1 for seam. That is 6, which is this point. So I'll just connect that to a straight line. So now this is the basic bodice, the pattern. Now to determine the yoke, I will first and foremost, on this chest line, I'll come down by ½ inch. That is where the nipple of the child will fall in. This will help me to determine the yoke so that when the child put on the dress, the breast or the chest will not be showing, if that really makes sense. So this is the point. This is the point that the breast is on the dot. So now anything you are drafting should come up by 1 inch. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So now for this, I'll be making it a sweetheart shape. That is for the yoke. So all I have to do now is on this point here, I'll come up by 1 inch. Anything I'm drafting should not fall below this 1 inch. If it falls below this 1 inch, the child body will be showing. Okay, so now I will now use my free hand, or if you have anything you can use to trace it, give it the shape that you want, is up to you. Okay, this is really optional. This is my own method of going about this. You can also find out your own best way of doing this, but if the child is close to you, I will advise you measure to determine this breast point. Okay, so now the next thing to do is to determine where you want the yoke to start from. Okay, so for this I would like it to start from this chest line. Okay, so from this chest line, that is where I want it to start. So I can use either my free hand or your French curve to give it the shape, okay, that you really want. So I'll just use this and trace that up to that point there. Okay, this you can decide to give it a straight or a square, is up to you, or even a circle. So now this is the shape. Remember what I said, that it must not fall down below this line. So now this is the shape. All I have to do now is to cut this out. This is now the yoke that I'll be using, and this is the body's the other half. I only use this line to give you as a guide, so that you understand what I'm really doing. So now I will just cut this out, but when cutting it on my main fabric, I will add ½ inch for my seam, for just this point, this one and this one, just this point here, because 1 inch already has been added for both the shoulder and the waist area. So now let me just cut this out. This is now the shape. This is what I'll be cutting on the satin, while this is what I'll be using for the yoke. This is it. As you can see, it's very easy and simple to do. All I have to do now is to add my ½ inch just here. Okay, just here, to add the ½ inch for seam, and also ½ inch for seam for this other part. That is just all I have to do. So now I'll place this on my fabric and I'll just trace it out quickly. It out on my fabric, let me quickly show you how to cut the back. As you can see, this is my line as a guide, so I will remove 1 inch for the zipper allowance. After that, I will now connect it to a straight line. After this, now I will insert the shoulder measurement, okay, which is 4. That is 8 divided by 2. This is the point here. Then the neck width, remember we used 2¼ which is here. Okay, and the neck depth, I'll use ½ inch for that. This is ½ inch here. So now I'll connect that point. So here I'll come down by ½ inch, which is here. Then I'll connect. Remember we used 3½ as the armhole. This is 3½ here. Okay, then I will insert the shoulder, half of the shoulder measurement, which is 4, and that is this point here. Okay, I will now connect. The back, I'll be making it a straight yoke for the back. Okay, so it's a very simple and easy thing to do. So now I will check what I have here the same way I did the front pattern. That is just what I'm repeating again. The only difference is that the neck now is high, and I'll be doing a little adjustment on the waist area. Okay, so this is the midpoint, and I'll also come in by 3/4. Then the chest measurement is 20 divided by 4, that is 5, plus 1 inch for my seam, okay, which is 6. The same thing applies to the waist, 6 as well. So now I'll just connect it. So here I'll just connect it. So after connecting it now, I will now determine where I want the back yoke to be. Okay. So for the back yoke, you can decide how deep, how low you want it, or high, is up to you. So, but for this, I will just come down from this chest line. I will just come down by 1 inch. So after coming down by 1 inch, I will just connect that line to a straight line. Remember, I said for the back, I would like to make it a straight yoke. If you don't want it straight, you can curve it. You can just give it any shape that you prefer. So this is it. Now for this side, I'll come up by ½ inch. Remember the reason for doing this. If you have been following all my tutorials, you should know reason for this. Okay, but if you're not, it's just simple, so that the front will not be longer than the back. So now this is the half. I'll just connect it back to this point when I'm cutting it. So after that, now I will now cut it out. Then when you're cutting on your main fabric, always remember to add your ½ inch for your seam. Okay, just on these two lines. So that is very important. And when you're cutting this on your lining, instead of ½ inch, you should add 1 inch, so that it will not be coming out. If you use exactly ½ inch, it will be on the same line, and the other might be showing. So the best thing to do is to make your lining 1 inch on this side. When you're adding the seam, make it 1 inch so that it will come down a little. So now let me just cut this. Front looks like, and this is for the back. So now for the lining, I'll be using this fabric for this lace for the lining. But if you don't have enough fabric, you can use net. Okay, but you must use red, or the color of the net of the dress you're making. So now, since I have enough of this, I'll use this now to cut out the lining. Like I was saying earlier, for the lining now, I'll add, if you're using your pattern, instead of half, remember this, I added half because of this seam. But if you're cutting it on your lining, if you're using this, you add 1 inch, so that your lining will fall under, it will not be coming out. But if you're using this one now to cut out the lining, you just have to add only ½ inch for this. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. So now let me say, I will use this now to cut out the lining and all these ones as well. trying to explain to you for the lining. Now this is the front and this is the one I'll be using for the lining. As you can see, this is longer than this. Okay, so this I've added another ½ inch, so that is just that. So now I'm going to start by sewing this place first. So after sewing it, this is what I have. All I have to do now is to give it a good press. As you can see, I've given it a notch here and there. So now I'll give it a good press so that this will now relax. So I'll repeat the same thing on the back side and all the lining before I'll now join the shoulders. Okay, so let me just join the rest. This is what I have after joining all the four. This is the front, and this is the one I'll be using as the lining. This is the back with the lining together. So for the front now, if you have your applique, you can now place it. You can use your machine or you use your hand to stitch it, position it the way you want, and that is just that. So now I will just join the shoulders together separately. I will join the lining on separate and this separate, after which I will now close the neckline. So after joining the neckline, this is what I have. Okay, I will not be closing the armhole until I fix this applique on it, because if you close it up, if you close the armhole, it will be very difficult for you to give this a good stitching. So now the next thing to do, I will show you how to cut the down part, after which I will now show you how to join it, and that is how simple it is. So for the down part here, I have 1 yard of satin. Okay, and from the way it is on the thumbnail, you can see that it is a flare cutting that we are going to use to achieve this. So now you determine your pleat, how many inches you would like to make each of your pleats, and you have to consider the amount of fabric you have so that you don't run out of fabric. So because I have 1 yard, I'll be using 6 inches. That is for the pleat. Each of the pleats I'll use 6 inches to do that. And you can see that the front has 3 pleats, okay, 1 at the center and 2 by the side. So that will be 6 into 3, and that is 18 for the front. The same thing apply for the back. That is 18 plus 18, which is 36. Okay, then plus the actual waist measurement, which is 20 inches. That will be so that will be 56, plus 2 inches for seam, that is 58. So I'm going to divide 58 by 3.14, which is what we use when we are cutting a half circle. So when I divide that, I will now have, so when I calculate that, I will have 18.4. So I will be marking out, I will fold my fabric in a triangle form, the same way you fold when making a half circle. Okay, so as you can see, I folded my fabric. So now I'll mark out that 18, but I'll be making it 18.25, which is here. But when you mark out, you try first and foremost check if the remaining will be enough for the length of what you're working with. Okay, for mine is just on the dot. Okay, that is why I said you should check. It depends on how many yards you're working with. Okay, so if you're making for a bigger girl, you can use 2 yards to be on a safe side. So this is 18 inches here. Okay, I'll be using that on the dots. So I'm going to mark that all to the other end. After cutting it out, this is more than enough. But if you want to make a high-low for this year, that is for 1 year old, you can just make use of 1.5 yards of satin. That way you have enough for the back length. Okay, but for this I don't want to make it a high-low, but if you want to make it a high-low, it's just simple. You just mark out using the back length to mark it all out first before you now mark out the front side. So to see more on that, you can check out my video on how to make a peplum ball gown for a baby girl. There's a high-low peplum ball gown for a baby girl, and you get to see how to do all that. So now I will just split this. Okay, I will just start from this center and pleat. After pleating, I will now join it, okay, on the upper one. After that, you can now use your lining and your hard net and add to it, and that is just simple how it is to make this beautiful dress. So guys, that is it for today. Please subscribe if you have not, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so that you get to see more of this video. So guys, I'll see you soon.